Well, greetings, vinyl community. I just wanted to stop in briefly before the year ends and wish everyone a happy holiday season. I hope you've all been enjoying the festive days. It's been a little quiet Christmas around here. I did go in for surgery on the 20th, so I've been spending my time off recovering at home and not going out and doing any record shopping. But I did want to show some records. Oh, that's also why I don't have a mustache anymore. And I haven't seen my upper lip in decades, so I just had to remove the hair from around my mouth. I think that has to do with being intubated and all that kind of fun stuff. Anyway, what I was saying was I wanted to acknowledge a couple of very important records and then just show a few others that are a bit random, just for fun. So, to start with, I received some wonderful Christmas VCLT from Bill at the Vinylverse. And here is Improvisation on 4 Sequences by the synthesizer pioneer Suzanne Ciani. And this is a pretty recent release. It's not only just a great thing to have because of the superb music. This is electronic music a bit with the kind of same vein as the Berlin School. So if you dig Tangerine Dream, you'd like this. But Bill got me an autographed copy. I am just knocked out. That is so wonderful. And the album itself is just beautiful. Great cover as well. This was just fantastic. So this made my Christmas. Thank you so much, Bill. And the other record that I deem important is this new release, 7-inch, from Surplus 1980. Plus GW Sock, which you can read because the yellow stamped ink tends to run. This is an amazing package. It is made in support of an organization that is rescuing animals that are displaced by the conflict in Ukraine. So the whole thing has a theme. Let's get the. It's a wonderful package. This is an outer vellum wrapper, which is secured by an actual Ukrainian postage stamp. So I think everybody gets a different one. And within that, there is the picture sleeve showing a certain villain of our modern times, a certain Putin, if you know the French word. And here's a sheet with the lyrics, and on the reverse, some other information on things you can do to support humanitarian efforts regarding the conflict in Ukraine. And on top of all that, it's pressed on this beautiful split blue and yellow vinyl. And the music itself is great, high energy, kind of, they say post-punk. It's kind of a noisy, punky approach to a proggy sound. I might compare it somewhat to This Heat. So if you dig This Heat, I highly recommend that. I highly recommend that to everybody. It's a limited edition of 275, and I will put a link to the Bandcamp where you can order that in the description below the video. So definitely check that one out. And for some random records, one piece that I've been kind of not exactly obsessed with lately, but just very into, very on my mind, is the Symphony in D minor, the only symphony by the French composer César Franck, who recently celebrated his 200th birthday, or he would have celebrated if he were still around. And if he were still around, 200th birthday would really be something to celebrate. So this is a bargain bin find that I made last month or a little while back. 49 cents for a recording from the late 50s by Sir Thomas Beecham. This is a great piece of orchestral music. It really shows the influence of Wagner. If you like the orchestral interludes that you might hear during the Ring cycle, this has that kind of stately grandiosity to it. It also caused a riot in France because when it premiered, because, you know, the French love to riot at premieres of music. You know, the Stravinsky Rite of Spring story is not unique. They did that every weekend. But what really set the French audience off is that Franck had the audacity to have a solo melody part in the central movement for the English horn, which is basically a large oboe. It's just a lower-pitched oboe. And it's an unusual instrument that wasn't always included in the orchestral family. So it was considered scandalous that he would have this oddball instrument given a prominent solo part. This is from 1888, was when Franck composed this symphony and premiered the following year. So that's what the French were up to in 1889. I think I've mentioned before that when I was a kid, the music I heard mostly around the house was show tunes. A lot of Broadway stuff, or else soundtracks from the movies made from Broadway shows. And one of those was My Fair Lady. So this is another find from the 49-cent bin. Billy Taylor Trio, My Fair Lady Loves Jazz. So as the title implies, this is jazz versions of the songs from My Fair Lady. This was recorded in 1957, I think it is, and it's not just the trio. There's the brass arrangements, big brass section arranged by Quincy Jones on much of it. Excuse me. And this was originally released on the Paramount label, but reissued in 1964 on the Impulse label, which is what we have here, to tie in with the release of the film version of My Fair Lady. And this is, let me get the logo on there, technically augmented. Wow! And another jazz impression of some show tunes can be heard on Shirley Scott, Happy Talk. Of course, Happy Talk itself is a song from South Pacific, written by Rodgers and Hammerstein. And there are two other Richard Rodgers songs on here from the earlier 30s musicals with Lawrence Hart as his co-writer, which doesn't matter because Richard Rodgers is the one who wrote the music. There are no lyrics on this. My Romance from Jumbo, and Where or When from Babes in Arms. So, love me some Shirley Scott. Great swinging organ performances. This is from 1963. And, oh, of course, on the Prestige label. So, there we go. Gotta show the label. Can't forget. Bar Phillips, great bass player on the ECM label. This is a brilliant example of the ECM sound from the late 70s. Bar Phillips on bass with John Sermon on saxophones and electronics, and Aina Kermanis, if I've pronounced that at all correctly, I have no idea where she's from, on voice. So it's just voice, saxophones, and bass, and it's very spacey and very beautiful and very wonderful. I can't believe I didn't have this in my collection already. It's a real monster. I'm a huge fan of the somewhat earlier Bar Phillips album, Mountainscapes. This is more sparse than that, more airy and spacey. That one had more instruments to it, had guitar, but that one is just wow. Finally, two albums that go together from the Swiss band Sonar. This is Transportation Volume 1, and they are joined by the amazing guitarist David Torn, Speaking of ECM, who made the very famous Cloud About Mercury album for ECM. It's on great colored vinyl. And the sound of Sonar is somewhat like the 80s King Crimson. There's a lot of that interlocking guitar stuff. They use retuned guitars and bass that they call tritone guitar and tritone bass to emphasize that particularly dissonant element of the scale. And again, it's like the 80s King Crimson, but without the vocals. This is all instrumental, so there's none of the kind of wackiness that Adrian Belew brought to the table. If you like the kind of gamelan-like interlocking guitar sound of King Crimson from that era, this is for you. And this is the Volume 2. That was from 2019. This is from 2020 on a purpley vinyl this time. So, excellent stuff from Sonar. If you look them up, don't confuse them with any other band called Sonar. I think if you go to Wikipedia, they'll tell you about a Belgian band. It's not the same folks. So that's all I have for right now. Hope everyone has a wonderful and safe New Year's Eve, and let's all hope for the best in 2023, shall we? Be well. Talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.